What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here. So you've heard by now, Mike Vrabel was in the building. He completed his interview with the New York Jets, and I'm super hyped, right? This is most likely the first or second candidate on anybody's head coaching list for the New York Jets specifically. It seems like he's a guy that's been favored by us for quite some time now, and being number one is his first interview since he was released from his consulting job with the Browns. It could be completely nerve-wracking, but in that same token, it could be a huge advantage for the New York Jets as well, as we set the groundwork and the expectations for what the interview will look like, or at least kind of the foundation and the principles of what this looks like versus maybe some of the other ones that he may go on before he gets a second interview request back to the New York Jets, right? So one of the things that we found out about from Connor Hughes was that this interview went really, really, really well, right? And we don't necessarily get a dive into what made it go really, really well. But when you take a look at what we found out about what Mike Vrabel is looking for, there were kind of three tenets here, right? One was strong collaboration between the coach, the general manager, and the ownership. The second one was a proven quarterback, or at least a pathway to finding who he believes would be the QB of the future, and then a path to working directly with ownership. And so this is, we'll touch on each of these points, right? But I think the third one kind of being the most key, or maybe the most worrisome, is that we don't want to lapse in communication, right? Where we play the telephone game and what he says gets translated through 4 or 5 other people. And by the time it gets to Woody Johnson, all he hears is, I can't, I couldn't, I wish, etc., right? As opposed to what he's done, what he's doing to get it worked on, etc., etc. And technically there's a fourth tenet as well, right? We know that he also wants to make sure he's extremely comfortable with the GM, but you can kind of roll that into the first point. So we had a couple of quotes here. He said, there's got to be clear communication with ownership so that we understand as coaches what the expectations are. If we break this down, this kind of gets into a little bit of the same conversation I was having during the Joe Douglas video I dropped a day or two ago about him rejecting a contract extension, right? What is the structure going to look like for this head coach and GM? And then as far as the head coach goes specifically, we know Vrabel has wanted more power than maybe the traditional head coach generally gets. And so you want to know what all is going to be in his purview, right? What's in his range of power that he can flex around the facility? Is it just going to be final decision over personnel matters? Is it going to be having a strong presence in who's being drafted, right? Does that also fall into final decisions for him? There's a lot of different things to consider here. One of the other quotes that we got was that he goes on to continue that so we can explain to them what's reasonable, what we can do, what we probably can do, and what we're going to do, what we're going to try to do or die trying. And this is one of the quotes that I think would make you fall in love with a guy like Mike Vrabel, right? He's not short on confidence. He's straight to the point. He's a pure shooter, and he's not going to beat around the bush in terms of what to expect, right? He wants to know what are the definitions from ownership and potentially GM to him, and he sounds like he plans to give that same kind of energy and feedback to the GM, to the ownership, to us as the fans, and really the media at large that are really communicating a lot of that back to us. And then one of the final quotes here, I want to have a structure in place that people see the game the same way I do, from an X's and O's standpoint, from a personnel standpoint with team building. We would hopefully have that alignment, which is critical. And I would like to be able to say that there's a quarterback that you feel like you can win with, or that there's a path to find one that you can win with. And again, each of these quotes kind of talk to the three tenets that he's really looking for from his next team. And I can honestly say here, truthfully, I think the New York Jets, when you consider everything we've been through, when you consider some of the changes, and, I dropped some of the feedback that we heard, according to sources, about the front office members that kind of feel this renewed energy to get things back on course after a lot of those hit pieces from The Athletic. when you look at this, I feel like Joe Douglas would have worked really well with him just because he seems like he was strongly willing to mirror whatever the coaching staff needed, because that's going to be the best way for success, right? But when you take a look at everything that's here, clear communication with ownership about what we expect. This isn't even a Woody Johnson problem for those that aren't going to love him and say this is something that can be screwed up. This is clearly just a business formality, right? If you want to put this down on paper and like a contractual type situation, this is pretty black and white, right? Here's what you are responsible for. Here's what we expect from you. Here's what the GM is responsible for. Here's what we expect from him. And then, of course, Woody Johnson's floating out there as kind of this UFO that can kind of, just drop in and do as he pleases. And it is what it is. But again, in terms of the structure, that should be one of the clearest things that can get done. Secondly, and also one of the benefits here is that if we do hire Vrabel before we get to the GM, he could participate in telling them what he feels comfortable taking on his plate versus what he would prefer to have the general manager have control over, right? For the second piece, a proven quarterback. Now, regardless of what we do in the QB room, I would make a strong argument that, again, Tyrod Taylor can be a playoff quarterback if, one, health permits him, right? He's been injury prone his entire career, has never had a full healthy season. And in fact, we're just coming off of, with Aaron Rodgers, one of the first, the first starting quarterback, I think, since Ryan Fitzpatrick to finish an entire season. And Fitzpatrick was back in 2015, somewhere in that range, right? So pretty crazy. But Tyrod Taylor is a quarterback you can win with. He has a lot of lovable attributes, both on the field and, of course, charismatically, that I feel like would connect him well to any room, which is why he's been on so many rosters. And then two, while maybe nobody or some people would be impressed with having Jordan Travis here, there's obviously, with us having a top 10 pick, a pathway to us trading up for a guy, or if you potentially love maybe one of the second tier guys like Jalen Milroe, or however you feel about a dart throw like Jackson Dart, no pun intended, there's some possibilities here, right? A little bit tougher because this quarterback class is one that's highly considered developmental, so you're not just going to get a plug and play guy per se that you feel really good about, but there's opportunities there. And then with the third one, path to directly working with ownership. If there's any owner in the NFL realm that would love to be able to just come and deal with the coach as often as possible, it would probably be Woody, right? So I think on two of those three, maybe three of those four, depending on if you're excluding the GM conversation or not, the New York Jets have a leg up here. And again, with us interviewing first, we could really set it up to tell him, here's how we're willing to cater to you. Just make it make sense with the vision. Explain it, right? But I would imagine that a lot of that interview was a strong beginning phase of the New York Jets really explaining where things faltered, how to correct it, but then a ton of back and forth over here's how we imagine we can address these things. Here's where we see you being strong at, but, explain these things to us and what you're seeing, right? So I'm super excited to hear what further news that we get from this Mike Vrabel New York Jets interview session, if possible. If not, at least just looking forward to that second interview notification coming through. But let me know what you guys think. I'm super hyped. Having Mike Vrabel be the first head coach that we interview is also a huge luxury, because if he's the guy that we think we are, he's a great measuring stick against any of the other potential head coach candidates that we look to bring in as well. So for those that love your Aaron Glenn's, for those that love your Ben Johnsons, your Liam Cohen's, your Cliff Kingsbury's, who I think will be a sneaky name that rises this hiring cycle, he is a great barometer, right? But again, let me know what you guys think. I'll catch you again. Peace.